Welcome to the Alive in Conversation podcast. This is a space for conversations about what becomes possible when we stop living from survival and start living from our true nature. Here we explore identity, leadership, money, relationships, well-being, and the journey of returning to the fullness of who we are. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Angela Hale. And let me introduce Angela to you. Angela is a self-connection mentor, intuitive business coach or guide, and she's the founder of Whole, Wild and Free. So Angela, for those that haven't come across you or your work before, I'd love to start with what got you into your work. How did it all begin?
Gosh, that's such a big question. I've been in this work for about 11 years, and I was in my own work. Of course, I'm still in my own work, but focused on my own work for 10 years before that. It started with a big letting go. I work primarily with what I call recovering perfectionists and people pleasers because I am one myself. And I was living in a way that felt, at the time, just really overwhelming. I felt like I was pushing and I was pushing, and everything felt so hard. And I didn't know why it felt so hard. I had this idea that it was supposed to feel much easier than it did, that it felt easier for other people. Somehow it didn't feel easy for me. I had been struggling with chronic illness for 17 years. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome when I was 13, and then with kidney disease a few years after college. And it always felt like I just need to push a little bit harder and get over this hump. I just need to work a little bit longer, and then things are going to feel easier. And it never did. And at some point, it became clear that if I kept pushing that way, I wasn't going to live. I wasn't enjoying my life. It looked really, really good on paper. This was in my late 20s. I had a fancy job in tech in San Francisco. I had a beautiful 1920s Art Deco apartment on the lake in Oakland. I had my pick of gorgeous men. I was traveling, but everything just felt kind of flat. And I had this like this inner knowing, this little whisper that I was meant to be doing something different, something more. And I didn't know how to figure out what that was. And it was like the whisper got louder and louder and louder until I couldn't ignore it anymore. And for me, what that looked like was, it sort of looked like my life spiraling out of control. Like my health was tanking. And at the sort of pinnacle of all of it, my job blew up. I had an affair with someone I was working with. My relationship blew up. My job blew up. And it was like the whispers got so loud, they became an explosion. And I couldn't not listen. I couldn't pretend anymore. That there was this other calling, even though I didn't know what it was. So I left my job in tech, and I radically changed my life. It wasn't like I'm going to change my life and this is what it needs to look like. It was like, I have no idea. And so I need to learn to listen to myself. I need to learn to reconnect to myself. So I stopped dating. I quit my job, and I went into a period of what I call deep listening. And I was really, at that time, I went into yoga teacher training. I learned to listen to my body in a whole new way. And I learned to listen to my heart and to what I'll call my life. It's like the mystery or God or spirit, it's all connected to me. And at that time, it felt like it felt like wandering through the mist and what I now call a sparkling stepping stone path, where I couldn't see where I was going. I didn't know where any of it was headed, but it was like I would get these little knowings and sometimes these very clear signs, sometimes from inside, sometimes from outside, just about the one next right thing. And I became willing to trust. I was on a mission to get more comfortable with being uncomfortable, to let go of certainty as a prerequisite for my safety, like to learn how to feel safe even when things were uncertain, and to let go of perfection as a requirement for my worthiness of love and acceptance and beauty and joy in my life. And that's how it started. It was like one little step at a time. And it was kind of like popcorn, where it would be one little thing and then another, like pop, 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 and then all of a sudden pop, 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 pop. And it was like my life just unfolded before me. And of course it still is. And now I'm living in this way. 11 years later, this is my devotional practice. This way of living, this way of living with trust and surrender. That's how it started. It started really with my life blowing up and with learning to listen.
I love that. And that gave me goosebumps, because I was just thinking, I felt the intuition to reach out to you and have you on the Alive in Conversation podcast. And here we are, like, not identical, but those parallel paths where you feel, like soul family. Because did you say you became a yoga teacher?
I did. I became a yoga teacher, and I was teaching classes in the Bay Area, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and workshops and retreats. And I was teaching on these themes of softness, of wholeness, because I found that I had been rejecting so many parts of myself. And that was one of the big practices that really brought me back into myself and my life, rather than what I call good, all the ways that we're conditioned, the things that we're told we should be and should do in order to be safe and loved, and on ease, and that way of trust. And I started as a yoga teacher, and then the people in my classes started asking for more personal attention and then for coaching. So that's how I got into what I do now.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful to hear that story. And so bringing us more to the present moment, or this period of your era of your life, my next question is, what are you no longer willing to tolerate in your life? So part of, I'll just give a little context here. A big part of my teaching, and I've got part of my brand, is the standard. The standard for women, and the standard for women is kind of what you make it, but really for us as women to want more and know that we're capable of more, and we can have more, and we can ask for more, and most of us have needed to raise our standards along the way. So that's where that fits in. So what are you no longer willing to tolerate in your life?
I love that question. Somewhere around 8-9 years ago, I made a deal with myself. I made a promise to myself that I was no longer going to bang my head against the wall. And for me, what that means is forcing. Like, I'm not going to push, force, manage, control. I'm not going to try and like force things to happen. I'm not going to try and prevent things from happening. I found it to be exhausting. I lived so much of my life that way. And, these days, how that occurs is usually, it's like too much struggle. If something is just feeling like it doesn't want to budge, like it's not moving. Sometimes it feels like not enough of something, and that kind of struggle, like not enough spaciousness, not enough support. And for me, that used to be a sign that I just needed to try harder, that I just needed to push harder or persevere longer. And these days, it's a sign that something's misaligned, that there's something that doesn't want to flow. And sometimes that means that I can stop and take a breath and the thing reveals itself and then I can move forward. And sometimes it means I've been on the wrong path entirely and I need to be willing to let it go. But yeah, I don't push and force. It's been a long time since I did. And of course I'm human, so every now and then I'll realize that I've been doing it and it's so easy to let it go. But
Mm,
it was not in the beginning. It was a real practice.
yeah, I love that. And something that came to mind, and I'm curious if you know this experience when you were telling me that. Not that long ago, that imagery of when we've got an automatic pattern, way of
Mm,
being that is subconscious, and we find out sometimes it just will hit us and like, where did that come from? But of course it wasn't where did it come from. It was just running in the background for maybe a long time until we catch it and be able to change it. So I had that feeling, probably starting about 5 years ago, very strong, that I was really trying to hold everything together, make it, met this potential husband, fell in love, could see a huge potential, got my online business going, son in school. And I was so terrified of, or it felt like things were not working. It felt like I was holding all these things. I'd managed to manifest or get all these things that I desired, and I now was having them all, enjoying them all, but a feeling that I have to really work hard to keep them. And at the same
mhm,
time feeling like they're not going to work. So I kept working even harder, similar to what you're saying. And then eventually, not that they collapsed, I collapsed, because it was such an effort trying to, micromanage and control everything. More recently, I've had an experience, and the reason that I'm expanding the conversation a little bit for the listeners together with you is I've had that experience where it was a letting go, a surrendering, an opening to whatever your listeners want to connect to, whether it's your inner guidance or the universe or God, whatever that, or nature. So it was a deep surrendering, and then course correcting, letting go, and things seemed to open up. More recently, I had to unravel some really deep rooted fears that it wasn't the thing that wasn't aligned for me. It was that I was sabotaging it, because if I got it, it would have meant was the thing I was afraid of, because it touched childhood trauma.
mhm.
And so this complexity of life, which I love. So yeah, does that resonate to you? Like sometimes it could be the thing doesn't feel like it's working, but it's because we're blocking it, sabotaging it. And my practice, just to complete, and I'll hand over to you, is I think you're, absolutely spot on, that sometimes we're really trying to force an outcome, force the man to be the one, or force whatever it is, and it's not aligned, and we really do just have to let go. But sometimes it's doing that inner work of loosening and letting go of the fear or the pain that's sabotaging, and then allowing the space, and maybe it is and maybe it's not, but they're quite different processes, and I've gone through both, so I just wondered if
Yeah, that's resonant. I think, especially as a recovering perfectionist and people pleaser, and um, someone who would have formerly identified as like a high achieving woman, um, I think, well, I don't really believe in self sabotage. I think that it's
mm,
always self protection. Like there's
protection, yeah.
inner part, yeah, like there's some inner part of you, of me, of everyone, that sees things that we don't see, or that has fears that are still there. Like you said, maybe from early in life, maybe they're new.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, like
but
unsafe rather than sabotage, something that feels
yeah,
unsafe.
it
Yeah.
feels unsafe to some part of us. And this is why self compassion is really at the heart of my own practice, and also what I teach. Um, every course that I've ever taught has started with what I call deep allowing. But in
Mm.
order to be able to deeply allow, and deep allowing is about what's inside, all of the feelings that are there, all of the fears, all of the doubts, all of the joy, all of the longing. Like sometimes really wanting something is the scariest thing in the world, right? Because you might not get it. And also for allowing for what's outside, for what's happening in our lives, for what's happening in the world, rather than like sticking our head in the sand. So we're not denying or diminishing or dismissing our inner experience or the outer world. And in order to be able to do that as a recovering perfectionist and people pleaser, the first thing that I really needed to root into was self-compassion. And that's because the stories that I grew up with were like, it's not okay to be uncertain. It's not okay to be scared. It's not okay to be angry. It's not okay to be sad. It's not okay for this to be too much. Like you need to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and do the thing. It's very American. And so, yeah, I think that sometimes that is the case. And I think that if we can practice self-compassion, if we can allow for that part of ourselves to reveal itself, not as something that needs to be fixed or changed or healed or transformed, but just something that is there, that wants to have its voice heard, that wants to be held. Very often I find that in the holding of that part, the tension or the resistance dissolves. Like transformation of ourselves, of our lives, it's not something that we need to do. It's something that happens organically out of that deep listening and out of that deep allowing. So yeah, I do think sometimes the resistance comes from inside. I've certainly experienced that myself, especially, you know, you mentioned money earlier, and it for me personally, I'll be really honest, it has especially come up around money and around visibility, especially as my online presence has grown. And you know, for my own process, like when I got really honest with myself, it was the fear of things getting so big that I couldn't hold them and would mess them up. And so it has come back to being really compassionate with the parts of myself that are scared of that, that are actually scared of the dreams coming true, of the success. And that's been true in relationships too. You know, I think a lot of people experience that. There's this longing for love and connection and intimacy, and this very human, deep fear of vulnerability at the same time. So it's like, you know, that sort of the opening that is necessary, I think, to expand ourselves and our lives in a way that so many of us are called to, I think really rests in that self-compassion and in trusting ourselves, trusting our lives, knowing like, okay, if this thing does get really big, I trust myself to navigate it. I trust that I'm held. I trust that I'm safe, which is really hard. That is not designed for our safety or our thriving, you know?
Yeah. And that last point has been a big process for me, I'd say more recently, as my life has expanded and new dreams and new desires and areas of my life have been calling me. It has been that reminding myself, remembering, and the compassion, I think, is a lovely word, that I'm not doing it alone, like this feeling of being supported. And when I go to that place, then the softening arrives, you know, that, and we don't necessarily grow up with it being, you know, pointed out, or we don't always grow up, we can grow up feeling quite isolated and alone and doing life alone. So yeah, that's something that's worked for me, remembering that I'm supported, remembering that I'm not doing life alone. And you've touched on it a few times, and I love it, especially for women, that softening and being supported, because it's in different areas, isn't it? It's this reminding ourselves as women that we that it's safe to be supported by a man if we want, or a partner if we want a partner. And that's very vulnerable and challenging for many of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then also being supported by the divine or the universe or guides or whatever beliefs you have and the listeners have. So I think it is such an important one. And when we're in day-to-day life with the kids and school and business and money, and whether we tap in sometimes to the big political, geopolitical events happening in the world, it seems to be the last thing sometimes that we get to. So support. I love that you've talked about compassion and support. Really great, really good. Yeah. Shall I move on to the next question? Is what has become easier for you as you've become more yourself?
Oh my gosh, everything. Everything. Yeah, everything. I talk a lot in my writing and in my business about what I refer to as the shift from should to soul. And it's that shift from living from, like I said, those ways that we're conditioned, that the stories that we're told, and that sometimes we tell ourselves about who we need to be and what we need to do. And that it just made everything so hard. I think like the only thing that maybe seemed easier was that I had a clear picture of what my life was supposed to look like. So I had this like path out for me, and now I don't have that. Now I very much discover it as it unfurls. Um, but having that role, that path sort of laid out, and the roles that I played feel very predetermined, um, was really hard because I felt like I had to sort of constantly squeeze myself into it. I had to like cut off parts of myself to make myself fit in the box that I didn't really fit into, that I was never meant to be in. And now, what is, it doesn't feel hard to me anymore, but I think what can feel really challenging for many folks is the uncertainty, because we're wired as human beings to be terrified of uncertainty. We're evolutionarily designed to fear things that we don't know because they may be unsafe, and we may die. And at this point, I'm pretty comfortable with that, just because I've got my ways of allowing myself to be held within it and of holding myself within it. So that doesn't feel, that doesn't feel hard anymore. And in being in that practice has made everything else feel so much more easeful. Like I get to live in a way that actually works for me, that is connected and inspired and joyful. And, even when it's not, even when it is chaotic, or sad or scary or full of grief, I get to allow for those feelings. I get to allow myself the wholeness of my human experience rather than fighting against it. So like even in the center of the chaos, I think there's more ease because I'm allowing now for the chaos, for the reality of it. You mentioned the kids and the job and the money and the day to day of lifing right now. And I have had a massive expansion of my life in the last 2 years, that I very much did not see coming. I fell in love and I got married and I moved internationally in a very short period of time. And I went from having one child and being a very solo mom. So I really was the one who got to choose the flow of our days and the cadence of our life. And I now have 3 children and a large dog and a husband. And Um,
Are you in a new
you know,
home as well? Are you in a new
a new
home?
home, a new country,
Mm,
um, a new community. It's been a lot of change, and a lot of it good change, but still change. A lot of it challenging. Um, and gosh, I can only imagine if I had done something like this, you know, 15 years ago when I was in the pushing and the forcing and the like happy mask and like pretending that everything was easy peasy while I was secretly white knuckling it and trying to like keep it all together and prevent it all from falling apart. Um, there's more ease even in the hard things now, because I don't need to pretend, because I have that trust, because I have that surrender, because I can ask for help, because I
mm,
can receive. Um,
yeah.
it's
Yes.
maybe yeah, a little bit morbid, but what comes to mind is like, um, I've heard that if you see that you're going to be rear-ended or something like that in your car, if you're going to have a car accident, the people who get the most badly hurt are the people who tense and like brace against it. Whereas if you can relax your body, then you're much more resilient because you can move sort of the way that the trees move in a storm. Like we have very, very
Mm,
tall pine here, and I love to watch them dance in the wind. And there's a resilience that comes along with that kind of softness, that kind of allowing ourselves to be moved.
mm.
Um, so yeah, everything feels easier now, even the hard things, because there's
Yeah.
actually journey inside of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. It seems like I've caught you in a really good moment because because we're connected on social media and I did see that huge change for you that came along. And so it's like the evidence, because as you were saying, if you look back to the Angela 15 years ago, how would you have navigated that and how you've done it? Yeah, that whether we love or hate that that phrase, everything is always working out for me, that is or everything is always working out for me, because it's perfect timing. I believe that we really do get delivered things when we're ready. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. That phrase is such an interesting one because I think that a lot of people use it in a way that is really like spiritual bypassing,
Mm,
where they're pretending, and they're doing the like holding their breath and bracing and white knuckling thing and like determined to believe like that everything is working out. But they can only sort of hold on to it sometimes when they're not allowing for what actually is inside or out. But I I really believe it though, and I think in a way that is almost like a deeper current where we can allow for the things that are difficult and have the deeper trust that like somehow like this moment is very challenging, and I'm willing to believe, I'm stubbornly willing to believe that somehow this is a gift, there's some blessing here, somehow everything is always working out for me. I don't know if you saw this part of the story on social media, but before I met my husband, just weeks before,
mm,
I had planned to be with someone else,
mm,
um, and it fell apart royally. And I think it's just like it's such a beautiful example of that, because it
mm,
was in allowing myself to be touched by that falling apart, the not knowing that came out of it. Um, like it was only in that way that I was really open to to him when I met him, to my husband
mm,
when I met him. I don't know that it would have happened otherwise. Um,
mm. I love that. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like it shook something that needed shaking to be open
Mhm.
to your husband.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had been very happily single for a long time. I was not looking to meet anyone. I was like actively not dating. I really, really loved my life with my daughter in the woods in California.
Mm,
Um, and there was something that happened that had me like get really honest with myself about what I actually wanted. Um, again, I wasn't trying to make anything happen. I wasn't like, I want to find my person and I'm looking for my person. But I had this moment. I remember I was sitting on the front porch, under the stars, as I did every night after my daughter went to bed. And a fellow coach had posted her elopement photos. And I cried looking at them. And it was so strange to me, but it was so beautiful. Her story was so beautiful. And I had this moment of like, okay, I deeply love my life. I don't need anything else. I don't need a partner. But if I could have anything I wanted, if I could have anything I wanted, what would I want? And like the only true answer was that I wanted this epic love. And
Mm.
I knew that I would be okay without it. I knew that I would be deeply happy without it, that my daughter would have a good life. It wasn't something that there was no attachment there. Um, but I also, like, I didn't want to move through the world in a way where I was pretending that I didn't want it just because I didn't need it.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, there was this opening that happened, and then I actually met the other man, and my experience of that was like it was so close to being right, but it wasn't. And I think sometimes those are the hardest things to let go of, whether it's a house or a job or a partner, because it's so human to have this fear of like, well, like maybe this is as good as it gets.
Yep.
Maybe too much. Maybe I'm asking for too much. Maybe I'm too picky. Um, and with him, I was really lucky. Like he made it really easy. He was deeply unavailable. And that was okay with me while we were connecting because again, I wasn't looking for partnership. But there were other things about him that I didn't even realize were things that I could have that I wanted. Like in some ways he set a really high bar. And from there, I was able to move forward. Like, okay, I know exactly what I want. I know what I won't tolerate.
Mhm.
Um, like where I'm not going to waste my time, and and I know what the dream is, and I hadn't really allowed myself to dream that big before. Um, so it was the allowing myself to like the authentic desire that was there, and then getting really clear on what I wanted that to look like, and then being open to being surprised.
Mm.
Just sort of, yeah, this recipe, and then it happened so fast. I met my husband 2 weeks later, and we just knew.
Mm.
There's no putting it. And I had friends tell me at the time, like, why so fast? And what was interesting is that from the outside, it looked really fast. It was like by any rational measure, it was really fast. But because I've been on the journey that I've been on, I know what it feels like when I'm rushing and when I'm pushing. There's like a tension that lives in my body. Um, I called it like white knuckling earlier. It's that
Mm.
feeling of like of forcing and pushing. And it didn't feel like that at all. It felt uh, like surrendering to a love that was already there, that was always meant to be, rather than bracing against it. And it yeah, it was just so easy. And it was just like what was, and all I had to do was allow for it. So
Mm. Yeah. What a beautiful story. Yeah. Yeah. And does it still feel, when you talk about it, does it still feel that dance between reality and the magic of life? It sounds like
it
it really
really
touches. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it really does. It's so cliche, but I feel it every day. Like I wake up in this place and I can't believe that I get to be here. I still can't believe that I met him, that I found him. He feels the same way. It's really sweet. And
Hmm.
that's, and that's like it sounds like a fairy tale, but it's also like, we are both neurodivergent. We have three neurodivergent children. Like our house, I call it a circus of chaos sometimes. Um, it's been a lot for the kids, like big changes for them. It hasn't been an easy couple of years, but it has felt easeful, if that makes any sense at
Yeah,
all.
yeah. And this is perfect on point for my brand because yeah, easeful is a word that I have connected to in the last couple of years, that I have practiced, have been on a journey with myself. Easeful, finding ease and finding easefulness, which for me is very related to the flow, like being in flow, the ease of letting go, stopping the control. And then I also, for a bit of fun on social media, I had a phrase that I was using was, that was easy. Oh, that was easy, you know, kind of, because it's so against what we're taught in life. So yeah, I don't believe that life is meant to be easy, but I definitely don't think life is meant to be hard or difficult. This is a human reaction. This is a human response to life, because as you mentioned beautifully, the connection with nature, our connection to nature, you don't see nature struggling. Yeah, there's moments of intensity. Maybe, are we going to make it? Are we not going to make it? You know, the human likeness, you know, we have fear. The fear is to keep us alive or not. It's that unknown, but we can't control that. And I think nature is such a good, you know, to watch nature, to learn from nature. Nature isn't living, it's difficult, it's hard. Nature is in the moment, and I love that you brought that in. Yeah, so easeful, but it's not always easy. No, but it's not hard as long as, yeah, I think when we stop the beliefs that we can take from maybe growing up, we saw struggle of parents or whatever we saw around us, where we made the conclusion, oh, life is hard, life is difficult, or we maybe had, you know, because of our upbringing, you know, we might have had to fight a lot for things. That's what we learn, you know, and then it was useful in those moments. It was useful to be the one that fought for what they wanted, because that was the way that we got what we wanted. We might have survived. It might have served us very, very well. But there's a moment where we have to let go of those efforts and efforting and ways of possibly surviving that we did, and come back to this truth of life where there is the ease and the flow. So yeah, I love all of that.
I think, like you said, like it's a moment where, for so many of us, like where we just can't do it anymore, either because we're exhausted or because we're finally willing to admit that it's not working, or, you know, in my case, like because I was so sick that I like literally physically couldn't do it anymore. And nature is such a beautiful embodiment of this. It's the deep allowing. I think, I think sometimes people hear the word allowing or acceptance and they think that it needs to mean like, this is what's happening and it's okay. It's fine. It's totally fine. I've accepted this. But I think that real acceptance is like, this is just what's happening right now. Like, this is really hard and this is just what is right now. And nature is so in the what is, moment to moment to moment to moment, always. I actually, I went through a really, really difficult period early in my daughter's life. Um, I had been in an abusive relationship with her biological father. And when I left, it was right before COVID hit. And I represented myself in court in a domestic violence trial for 6 months. It was like the darkest period of my life, the most exhausted and the most hopeless. And I was living in Northern California at the time. And I used to go down to the river there was a spot that I loved to take her to, where there were these sort of rocky outcrops, these like big granite rocks in Northern California that
Mm,
jut out into the earth, this little beach that she could sit on and play in the sand. And I would walk upriver out onto the rocks and get in and float down the river on my back. And then I would get out and walk back up and do it again, just because I needed the reminder of what it felt like to let myself be carried and to be in that
mm,
flow, and to float, like to release the efforting. It was freezing cold, it was not like so it's not like a lazy river it is theme park, or like, the warm waters of the South Pacific. It was cold, but it was like it was the allowing myself to be
mm,
in that allowing, and to get back into that flow. And like that was the ease of it, was letting myself be held in the flow of what is, in the current of life.
mm. Yeah, I love, and when you were telling that or sharing that story, it reminded me of the listening that you've been talking about. And yeah, when we really trust that guidance, whether listeners are connected with, spirit or soul, or the inner guidance, I really feel um, the peace that we're bringing in together is following that guidance. Like, I'm sure that, because when you were sharing that, I was thinking, what made you get in the freezing cold water? But sometimes it's that kind of inner knowing, isn't it? It's
Mm-hmm.
something, there's something in our bones, or it's our will, it's that spirit that lives within us, that knows what we're made of, knows what we're capable of, knows what we need. Whether that be so for my journey, I was connected or drawn to teachers particularly, but the
Mm-hmm.
teacher might be the river. The teacher, I love it. The teacher can be the river or the woods or the stars. I just had
Yeah.
people as my teachers, but yeah. So I'm sure your soul was kind of talking to you get in the cold water, what you needed. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, it was very hot in the summers there, so
Mm.
there was uh, some grace. But it was this little inner nudge, and I deeply believe in honoring those little inklings that we have. I think there's a wisdom in them, even when we don't understand them, even when they seem a little bit crazy. Um, I just had this urge to float. I wanted to float. I wanted to be carried. And I didn't really
Mhm.
realize until afterwards, like, oh, like I needed that reminder. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So, for our listeners, Angela, if someone listening today is feeling stuck, disconnected, or living beneath their potential, what would you want them to remember?
Mm. The first thing that popped into my head was self-trust. I think um, it's so easy for us to doubt ourselves because the noise outside is so loud. There's so many people with so many opinions, and it's like in society, and then our family, and our own inner stories. And beneath all that noise, that, like, everyone has it. There is the inner voice, the whisper, that inner knowing, that wisdom that I think brings us back if we're willing to allow for it, if
Hmm.
we're willing to trust it. It's really easy to talk ourselves out of it. Oh, I shouldn't do this because this and that and the other thing. And if I do that, then this and that and the other thing is going to happen. And, um, you know, the difference, I think, between fear and intuition, like one of the key markers, um, between, like, continuing to stay in the chaos
Hmm.
and separated from ourselves versus like actually coming home to our own truth, to our own um, gifts and magic and the life that we're really here to live. It's like it's in coming back to that trust, and this fear so often has a million reasons why we should or shouldn't do something, or choose something, or be something.
Yeah.
But the inner knowing is just yes or no.
Yeah.
Like yes,
Yeah.
that is the difference. But the fear is like, no, but it's so cold, and then you'll be wet, and you're going to bring a bathing suit, and blah blah, and you'll look crazy. And the knowing is just get in the river, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually that question moves us shortly nicely into the short embodiment that I'm going to, with pleasure, invite Angela to lead for us. Now, I've got a final, more personal question for you. And I'm also aware it could be quite a long answer, but from my personal experience of being a single mother, although I really have been on such a beautiful journey over 7 years in this role, I've really, let go of the identity. I don't want to be identified as a single mother, trying to find my own way on the journey, on the path. And I'm sure that there will be other single parents listening. It's such a big evolutionary jump, even if I think about my mother and then my grandmother, where it would have been so challenging for the last generations to have solo parented. And that's often why what we saw was very unsatisfying or challenging marriages, staying in them because of the financial dependency on a man. I know for myself, I have worked through so many things, being just me and my son. One of those being the super independent, capable woman, making money that I knew how to be, but that was exhausting. And then the other, sometimes falling into the dependent, like just, needing a man because I can't do this on my own. And I've really gone on a beautiful transformation and healing journey in all of that. Did you have anything similar? Do you feel that the woman that you're now married, were you always good at making money? Because I really felt for myself, it was so, that moment that I became a mother and then became a single mother, I have, as a woman, it opened so many options for this transformation of me as a woman with money, my relationship with money, which I'm so grateful and blessed, and it's ongoing, and it's a beautiful journey and so necessary. And that's the one thing that I think as coaches or mentors online, it's all over the online space, women and money. So was that something that was was it a big deal for you, or was it something more that you'd already got a grasp on and that wasn't the main thing that you needed to work through? Stability and security and
It's definitely not the main thing that I needed to work through, given my story with my child's father. There was a lot of trauma there, and that was the main thing for me. And I will say I've had such an interesting relationship with money since before she was born and then throughout her life. And it's been colored by sort of outside circumstances. It was colored by my health, and it was in my 20s, it was like I have to have this particular kind of a job because then I have healthcare and all of the fears. Again, like very practical, completely rational, understandable. Some would even say responsible. Um, but for me, they were fears that were keeping me from the things that I was really meant to be doing. And then, when I left, it was right before COVID hit. And I moved in with my mom when I left that relationship, and I thought that it was going to be very brief. I thought it would be a few weeks or a couple of months, and then I would be on my feet. But because the pandemic hit, it was so much more supportive to stay there. So I've had a tremendous amount of support. which I think can be hard for people to admit to. Um, for me, I feel really, really lucky. I feel deeply privileged. I feel blessed. Um, and money is so interesting. Like where I'm in this new cycle now of sort of figuring out again, having moved and like with this new flow of life. And she's homeschooling this year because we don't yet have access to the school here until our immigration goes through. And it's not a simple answer. It's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, and do you know
Um,
what? But something you said and something that I want to remind myself and remind the listeners, because it feels like a quality that you embody. And even in the words you were sharing and that experience, that not everybody would go live with their mother or be able to live with their mother. And so
mhm.
what I sense very strongly is something that you are able to teach other women is how to allow, you've mentioned allowing, how to be supported, be held as a
Yeah.
woman. Because essentially with the recent work that I've been doing, excuse me, with money is like, it's the same, it's a support, money
Yeah.
supports us. And I think it sounds as though it's a quality, a gift that you have got well embodied, and that you teach others. So we got the answer right there, reminding our
Yeah.
listeners that yeah, money is about allowing support, money to support us, to
Yeah.
support you.
Wealth for me is um to be wealthy to me is about spaciousness. It's like I don't need to
Mm,
push, I don't need to push, and it's about choice. Like it's about having options rather than feeling like I'm stuck in anything,
yeah.
in my location or in my time, freedom, the kind of healthcare that is available to me. Um, like that's and then there's being able to give back the community support. Like that's why money it matters to me personally. And so what I've found is that like if I have to trade something like that, like my well-being for money, then that's not wealth to me. That's not money
Mm,
that I want. And so I've been really um yeah, I've been really privileged to be able to receive in other ways. Like you said, like moving in with my mom was not easy.
mm,
I could have done it differently, but it felt like the most supportive option for me and for my daughter at the time. And there's so many blessings that came out of it. And so yeah, like you really nailed it. It's like the being able to receive what is
mm,
needed and what is desired, regardless of what form that's showing up
mm.
in. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. So what we could do, Angela, I'm very respectful and mindful of the time, and we've had such a beautiful conversation. Would you be open to guide us through a short practice for myself and the listeners? And yeah, we can close out with that. Would be fabulous.
I would love to. Yeah.
Great. And what I will do, so we're going to be led by Angela, and then I will ask Angela, when we've completed our practice together, to share where we can find you and where the listeners can, but we will also post links. So yeah, just so we don't forget that piece too. But I'm going to hand over to you right now.
Okay, great. So this is a breath connection for receiving and releasing, for connecting with what is, for that practice of deep allowing, and in the space created for connecting with that inner wisdom. So I'll invite you to get comfortable. You can sit, you can lie down. If it feels safe, and let the eyes gently close. And connecting first with the body, just beginning to notice what physical sensations are present. You may notice areas of tension, tightness, maybe other areas that feel open or relaxed. There's nothing to fix, nothing to change, just noticing. And you might even let your body know that you're here for it, that you're present, that you're open, that you are ready to hear whatever it is that it wants you to know, whatever it needs from you on this next stretch of your path. And you honor this wisdom. Notice all the places you are held. Fascia holding together muscle and bone, so strong, yet so flexible. Skin holding all the insides on the inside, like a perpetual hug. Your feet, thighs, small of your back, soles of your feet, held by the gravity of Earth herself, drawing you near. And let yourself rest into that, melting deeper into her love, with every exhale, softening, even just a millimeter at a time. And now connecting with breath. Allowing it to be just as it is in this present moment. It may naturally want to speed up or slow down. Just allow that to happen as you witness. Nothing to make happen, nothing to prevent from happening. Bringing your awareness to the inhalation. Feel your natural capacity to receive. So beautifully illustrated by your breath. And as you receive, witness the natural process of assimilation happening. Feel your ability to utilize that which has been drawn in. Every little molecule of oxygen going exactly where it needs to go without a single conscious thought on your part. And now turn your awareness toward your exhalation. Witness your natural inborn capacity to release or offer back that which is no longer needed for you. What nature offers from abundance, you receive. What you let go of, nature takes in. She knows exactly what to do with it. And around and around and around, this supportive cycle goes. Whether you're aware of it or not, this is happening all the time without any effort at all. Since the minute you were born, so natural, even as you sleep, accepting and offering receiving and releasing. And the more awareness you bring to this ever-present process, the more conscious and empowered and easeful and joyful and magical your life becomes. And just resting in this flow for a few more breaths. And then letting the body slowly move, maybe wiggling your fingers and toes, rolling your wrists, stretching if the body is asking for that. And when you're ready, letting the eyes gently flutter open.
Ah, that was wonderful. And I highly recommend, I think I will be listening to that again because it felt like a practice repeated would deepen. So I'm sure my listeners will have loved that as much as I did. Thank you, Angela. Oh, and so we are coming to an end of our Alive in Conversation with Angela. Angela, to close this out, would you like to share any links, or where would listeners find you if you've got a website or Facebook page or any? Yeah,
the best place to find me is on Facebook. That's where I share the bulk of my writing and insight. I like to think of them as little gems of wisdom for those that they resonate with. And I also have a website. It's wholewildandfree.com.
repeat it one more time, the website.
wholewildandfree.com.
Fantastic. wholewildandfree.com. And we will link those to the podcast so that listeners can find you. Thank you so much. I've loved being here with you. And we will stay in touch.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was really a joy to connect.
Oh, it's been a real pleasure, and I've loved having you. So we will meet again for another episode, and say goodbye to Angela. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.